Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. How are you, Sam?
I'm really good, thanks. Calen, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah.
I moved 3 fridges yesterday all by myself. I figure I saved myself about $1,200
in labor or
in
you got to retake
junk
out
disposal.
Oh, junk disposal.
Yeah.
So what? You just push it off a cliff and leave it for someone else? Drop it off.
I like how the bridges have that one empty spot where you can push things over. Yeah. No, I found.
Did you take it to recycler?
I did at the end of David Street.
Yeah, H&L.
No,
Ellis.
No, it's a different one. It's at the very end of David Street. It's beside Ellis Recycling, but it's not. And they'll pay for your metal. Like, they'll
really?
pay you to bring your metal.
Well, they weigh it. I think that's
they
H&L Disposal.
Oh, maybe
I think that's or
maybe they've changed their name. Anyway,
what is their name? Because I have to drop some stuff off too.
I'll tell you after the show if I
Okay.
can't remember. But what a great place! And all you restaurateurs who have grills and fridges that need to be disposed, just do it yourself. Save yourself a bunch of money. Oh my god!
Yeah, there's one we can't. It's too heavy to move. Like it died.
I need to get him to help you. Actually,
I did it basically all by myself. I moved 3 giant commercial fridges myself. I had someone open my door for me, but that was it.
Oh my god! Yeah, well, you saved all that money.
And I felt.
Did you get
really
paid?
Good.
No, you didn't get paid for the fridges.
No, but I didn't have to pay out.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's the same. A penny saved is a penny earned.
Well, I was being quoted $460 by a junk hauling company to take it away. It's like,
so you didn't save 1,000, you saved 400.
No, but there were 3 fridges that I ended up doing. That was a quote for 1.
Oh, just one?
One.
Yeah. Well, he might have given you a bulk deal. So maybe you saved $800.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's money. Hey, that's a win.
Now. Yeah. I felt really good.
Well, here's a segue. Speaking of wins, we've got an amazing guest on today. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Bruce.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Good work on the fridges, by the way.
Thank you. It made me feel accomplished. And then I fixed plumbing at my house.
Shut up. Really?
I did. I had to pull my pants up because I was looking like a plumber.
Wants that. Yeah.
No one wants that. But I was able to fix a problem that's been bothering our kitchen sink for a couple of years.
Turned the main off. There was no leakage. You get the pail under the...
That's how our kitchen sink has looked for years with the pail under it. And now it doesn't need the pail.
Okay.
It was
a trap thing on the bottom where you can screw that off and unplug it.
But everything was leaking for years, and I finally figured out how to fix it.
Glad you found the time.
Are you handy, Bruce?
If I have to be. I used to like to say that I love taking on any household chore at least once before hiring somebody to do it right.
Yeah.
So you figure out what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah.
But by nature, no, I'm not that guy.
No, I'm not. I always kind of go in and out of it.
Yeah.
Like my wife was, or I guess I thought my wife wanted me to do more stuff around the house. So there's a leaking toilet. So I embarked on fixing that. And of course I got the wrong part and toilet was out for like 2 days.
There's so many parts.
There's so many parts.
And then keep track of all the parts of the toilet.
So I'm like, it's not my forte and I don't like being micromanaged. And my wife likes to micromanage, so she's standing over me, and I'm just at the point where I'm testing it.
And that's not a bad thing, by the way.
No,
let's point that out.
Yes,
it's not a bad.
No, I agree. I'm really working on my, the sort of Zen part of that because, she'll be asking me, firing off questions that I don't quite have answers for, that I'm in the middle of trying to figure out what the answers are, and then and I'm like, I don't. This is what I'm doing. Why I'm here. And anyway,
you figure out what you're good at and what you're
right? So I realized, okay. And then I'm thinking, well, does she even care? I don't even think she cared. In fact, it was more frustrating for her to watch me do it than to feel the joy of actually doing it.
Deep down, I think she likes it. I think she likes doing that too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's a sport
and
for her.
Who are you to deny her those simple pleasures?
That's a whole different way to look at it.
Right?
Yeah.
I find I'm getting, as I get older and more desperate and much less willing to pay for someone else to do things, I'm getting pretty handy.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of myself as handy ever, really. But being in the hospitality industry for so many years,
you got to wear a lot of different hats.
Really do. And
innovation is the mother of
Invention.
So that's what you got to do. When you have to do it, you got to do it. We lived rural for quite some time, 2 different times on acreages in the country. So you're living on septic, you're living on a well, you've got an acreage, you got creaky gates, you got trees, you got wildlife, all that stuff. So you kind of adapt to that after a while, and you figure out what you like and what you don't.
That's right.
We don't live in the country anymore.
So
that's kind of things that you learn, right? But it's an experience. So
in fact, that doesn't really mesh with the job you've had for so long, does it? Being
I suppose
rural,
not, no.
It feels like a real urban job being the head of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I mean, we're an interesting region, right? Because we have some very distinctly rural areas in central Saanich, parts of Saanich itself, the district, North Saanich, certainly Machosen, Highlands. Yeah. We lived in Highlands for a while, actually.
Okay.
So since doing this position, which started in June of 2020, it's been concentrated on focusing on what's happening centrally for the most part, but all the other elements moving around the region. So for the first while, we did mostly remote work. I was in the office almost every day, actually, but we developed protocols to have people working remotely in their offices. We were fully masked if we weren't in our own office. But more and more, the Chamber has become something that represents the economy of the region, but we do a lot of gatherings. We do a lot of in-person things. And in that sense, yeah, it's something that's a little more conducive to urban living. But if I was prepared to do a lot more driving, I could still be living rurally, but trying to reduce the carbon footprint, you know.
Right. I got an electric car so I could drive in from Machosen every day. And
Yeah. Drive an e-car now, as you just saw.
Yeah. So 2020 must have been a really challenge.
Oh,
I mean, it was challenging for all kinds of reasons, but kicking on a position like you did, what were the major issues that you were facing there that you wouldn't have if you had taken over in 2018?
Well, it would be things that you guys both faced every single day. The fact that it was, and this is an overused word, but it was an existential time. You didn't really know what the future was going to be for your businesses, for your sector, for all the relevant people involved with that, for their families, for their spouses, for their kids, the people that were your suppliers, the people who demanded on you as a supplier. Everything was just upside down, and the uncertainty was just wild. I've never backed away from a challenge, and I'm not saying that with any sense of bravado. I'm just saying that I was asked to take on this task, and I decided to do that. So it meant changing fundamental ways of doing pretty much everything. The Chamber, being a very social organization, is based on interaction, meeting with people, saying hello, shaking hands, we did an event, we're recording this about a couple of weeks ago. We did an event yesterday with the JEDI Minister, Jobs, Economic Development, and Innovation.
Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah,
now?
no lightsabers in the room, but it's called the JEDI Ministry. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's the kind of thing the Chamber was always known for: social mixers, people handing out business cards, say, "What do you do? And what do you do? And who are you?" And making that was all gone. That was completely gone. So from a revenue point of view, the hard, stark reality of it was that the Chamber's revenue was based on 2 things, basically: membership fees and proceeds from events. There were no events, right? And I had calls and emails every day from people in great varying states of despair saying, I don't think I can pay you, and I don't think I'm even going to be here. I don't know if I can make it through this, right?
So membership gets affected by that as well.
Oh, absolutely. It just went, and it was starting to tank. So in that circumstance, as business people, you have 2 choices. You reduce expenses or you increase revenue through some other non-traditional source. So I didn't choose to diminish the services of the Chamber because it was probably never more important in its history than it was during the pandemic, 100%. As businesses were looking for that kind of support. So I chose the alternate route, which is to create an alternate source of revenue. So one of the premier ways of doing that was to create a separate echelon of membership, which is above and beyond the standard template of membership. People pay a Chamber membership based on the number of employees they have. So the top end of that was at a certain amount, about just a little shy of $4,000 a year for people with 300 or more employees. We created a separate echelon called the Chamber Champions, who would come in at $10,000 a year. And the first Chamber Champion ever was Calen McNeil.
Geez.
Was it really?
Wheel Burger.
It was.
So he's the guy who stepped up.
I was wondering how you got Bruce on the podcast.
Well, it's bribery.
Wow,
bribery.
Little payola.
But the Chamber Champions came to realize their own capacity, and we made it clear to them that the reason they're doing that was that you were going to help the Chamber survive.
Yeah.
This Chamber, as one of the third largest in BC and one of the 20 largest in Canada, we assumed a larger leadership role within the Chamber network. So that role of the Chamber Champions to have sustainable funding for us meant a number of things. It meant that we could continue to advocate with government for things that we felt needed to happen. It also meant that a number of our members who weren't going to be able to continue their membership, many of them get their health benefits through the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
So for them to suddenly have to go to their employees and their families and say,
That's
sorry, I
over.
can't join the chamber anymore, so you're losing your health benefits. So we were able to say to a lot of those people, well, we're going to put you on hiatus. And when the time comes when you can come back, please come back. But in the meantime, we'll carry on and you can maintain your health benefits. So just about all of those folks eventually did come back. Those who survived. It's the sad truth.
Yeah,
But
that's
most
right.
of them did.
Yeah.
So because of leadership by Calen and the others in the Chamber Champions group, that was a success for us. It also meant that as we got into more stability, we used those resources to undertake a lot of the DEI stuff that we've done, diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as dialogue around Indigenous economic reconciliation. We're an organization of 1,400 members, and of those 1,400, only 14 were Indigenous owned. So I started
Wow.
outreach to those
Wow.
people.
1%.
That were not engaged
Yeah.
as Indigenous businesses with the chamber. I'd say, why have you never come to us to help you grow your business?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't feel welcome.
Yeah.
I didn't feel I
that's
belonged.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also kind of took a look at the demographic makeup culturally within the organization and our membership. And the plainest language is we were pretty white. We were a very white organization, largely male dominated for a long time. So I said, well, we need to change that. So I started to chat with organizations that represented cultural business groups, the Chinese Commerce Association, the South Asian Business Association, the Black business community, people like that, and say, so why have you, like, we're here to help you grow your business. Why have you never come here? One of two things. I wasn't welcome. I didn't feel welcome. And secondly, I didn't see anybody who looked like me. So we then would say to them, well, you understand you are welcome here. We want to help you grow your business. We want you to grow your network. We want to help you flourish. You're safe with us. Please join us. So we have since then seen an enormous increase in the diversity within our membership. You come to a chamber event now, that diversity is very evident in the room. And it's funny that with it has come an element of youth.
Yeah.
So that now in the room, over half the people are under 40 years of age.
Yeah.
So that's the
So
future of the
essential.
chamber. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you explained it like that, because one of the things I was going to try to bring up in a non-confrontational way was
The whiteness of it.
is I've always felt that the chamber didn't belong to me, and it wasn't an organization that was built for someone like myself. And I'm a white male, but it still didn't feel like it was right for me, because it felt like it was like you had to be big business or have lots of money or know all the
connected.
people.
Or
Yeah.
multi-generational or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Long-standing families.
And I never felt like it was worth, or that I could go in, even if it meant I got cheaper healthcare, cheaper transactions back in the day, until my good friend Al Smith became the head of the chamber out in the Peninsula.
Yeah.
And he had some projects that I was really keen on housing and stuff. And he's like, would you like to be a member? I'm like, for you? Yeah. I didn't know you very well, Bruce. But after hearing
What
you
a
say
dig,
that,
man.
well, after hearing that though, and I'm so glad you said it, because, I think a lot of people feel that way, and probably still do in the hospitality industry, at least, that our businesses aren't being reflected by the chamber.
Like we've developed a dynamic with the BCRFA, for example, the BC Restaurant and Food Services Association. Ian Tostinson and I talk on a regular basis.
Right.
Peter De Bruyne is the guy who's on the ground here.
Yeah.
We came to realize through this challenge that together we're stronger, to use the cliche, but Destination Greater Victoria, Viatech, the Downtown Business Association, the Film Commission, the Harbor Authority, are all organizations, South Island Prosperity, their roots are all in the Chamber of Commerce. They all began as a committee of this chamber a number of years ago, or in the recent history of the chamber.
Interesting.
Okay.
So we made sure that those connections were made. We couldn't be seen as competitors. We had to be working together to get through the challenge of the pandemic. So we propped each other up. And that kind of outreach became a very, very consequential thing in how we recovered going out of the pandemic. So all of us working together, understanding that we have a lot of things in common, whether it's members or issues, but we can't stand alone and fight alone. We had to do that together. So we've been able to do that. And the increase in our diversity, if I'll go back to that for just a second, has made us complete.
Yeah.
We now more accurately reflect what our business community is, because if we're not inclusive of everyone, what's the point?
Well, and this is where it comes in. Like, even for me, when you talk about unapproachable. Like we've been on again, off again members of the chamber for years, but I never really, I mean, other the mixers and the traditional stuff, but I always felt, even though I'm white male, I always felt it was like predominantly white male and didn't really represent what I wanted for my company as far as that. And it wasn't until Bruce came on that I looked at it differently. And my kind of question to you is two phases or two parts. Is I came on because of Bruce. I stayed on because of the diversity, and inclusion that you were representing and promoting. And you really did a really good job, because I got involved with South Island Prosperity Partnership and all these other organizations that I otherwise wouldn't have even been a part of. But then you had the CEO breakfast, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so many like really positive benefits, and especially at that time, because we're all looking for sources or answers of how to fix the problems that we were facing.
Yeah.
But to be able to have those mentorship groups and to be able to just email you and say, hey, let's go. And what a great idea to save the chamber by the chamber champions. But it really, for me, was you coming on and your approach.
Thank
and
you.
So how much, and now of course you're going to be bashful or understate your influence on that. How hard was it to change that? Obviously it was a time of change because of COVID,
Yep.
but how hard was it to move the needle in the chamber? Because the chamber, Victoria is one of the oldest chamber of commerce, is it not?
We're the oldest one in Western Canada.
Yeah.
You're 163 years old.
Yeah.
So my predecessors and all the people before me have created a terrifically strong foundation for this chamber. Its business case is strong. It's been important. It's been heard. It's been seen by levels of government, by everybody. To me, quite frankly, it was an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. To make the organization a little bit more fulsome in what they do. I'm a guy that grew up witnessing the civil rights movement. So I saw the importance of all that stuff. Went through some stuff where my family embraced diversity a long time ago and got condemned for it, quite honestly. My family owned a bakery in a small town that we operated. So one time, a Jamaican family moved to town and no one would hire them except my father, who hired the mom and one of the kids in the family to come in and work in the bakery. They were treated very badly by other employees. I got hassled at school for it. Other business people in town went to my father and said, well, if you hire them, they're just going to stay. But that's been always, it's the right thing to do.
Thank goodness
yeah.
they stayed.
So that in my own principles is why I knew that this had to happen.
Yeah.
But to me, it was how I could make a difference. And it was a very obvious thing to make a difference in the chamber and not just maintain status quo. So it's been terrifically rewarding for me. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And what I've learned from it is quite spectacular, because by doing that, you learn how much you don't know.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
It's so educational.
So it's even little things like when you're planning an event, if we're going to do an event, we have staff cross-check to see, are we sure that's not happening on Rosh Hashanah, or it's not happening during Diwali or anything like that. We need to understand that sometimes people need to take their time off to align with their cultural celebrations, not with the Christian calendar all the time. Still, everything operates on that. It's still Christmas and Easter and Good Friday and all that stuff. But we need to find ways, and we've advocated for this, to make compensation for that so that people can celebrate their culture in this as a free country.
Yes.
So those pivots have to happen. And quite frankly, I think it represents an opportunity for people to staff themselves, if you will, at a time when those following Christian holidays want the time off anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So just
it's a good trade-off and balance.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's respectful.
Yeah.
It's what we need to do to be a welcoming country.
Are you, speaking of being a welcoming country, are you finding that the initiatives that you've worked on the last 4 or 5 years, the chamber champions and more diversity, are you seeing that spread to other chambers in BC and across the country?
Yeah. One of the pivotal things that we did was that we and I were the first chamber in Canada to acknowledge that we had been a part of suppressing Indigenous culture historically. And for that, we unequivocally apologized. So we did the acknowledgement of it, the truth, and then began the reconciliation by the meetings that I had and by acknowledging that. I've gotten to know other people in the Canadian Chamber Network through different committees and stuff like that. I had a number of people email and call and say, I am scared to death to do that because I'm afraid I'm going to probably say the wrong thing. I said, yeah, you probably are. But that's how
Which
we
I think
learn.
is good.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
you learn.
But yeah, I mean, but go to your Indigenous and First Nations
Yeah.
in your community and
Ask
say,
questions.
we would like to do that. First of all, is that the respectful thing for us to do? Because
Yeah.
again, not all nations are the same, right?
Yeah.
So some of them might say, yes, we would appreciate that. And some would say, don't worry about it. And others would say, no, it's too late or whatever the answer. But I said, just go ask them. Open the door, make the call, be respectful, do it on their terms, do it on their timetable. And so a number of them have been able to do that. And they've then now had this reconciliation with their local nations who are a government standing on their own, and with Indigenous-owned businesses too, who, again, have never felt included in a lot of this stuff. And frankly, in a lot of cases, I'm not an expert in this, but their business practices are not the same as non-Indigenous. There's other things that matter more to them. My impression is that many of them are more inclined to invest back into themselves and their families than to try and create massive profit that goes elsewhere into the economy.
Yeah.
Not a problem with that. I'm fine with that, right? That's what we learned from them.
That's how you build a community.
And it's the same
sometimes,
with
right?
the culturally diverse businesses too, that for a long time, a lot of us grew up thinking, oh, well, the Korean families all kind of work together and do business with each other to support each other within their own community. Not always. It could be that maybe somebody who is a Korean, Filipino, South Asian, Punjabi, African, people wouldn't work with them because of a conscious or unconscious bias.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 3 bids from 3 people on a plumbing job. You pick the white guy. You don't really necessarily want to trust someone else from a culture that you don't know. And that's
familiarity. And it's
an
kind
unconscious
of a human
thing. Yeah.
trait, I guess, or
Yeah.
liability in all cases.
Yeah.
But
So there's an undercurrent of negativity in all of that, but the overriding thing is that it's a very positive thing and it's being done and it can't change overnight, and nor has it changed overnight in the 5 years that I've been there, but it's been a pretty substantial change. It wouldn't have been possible if the foundation hadn't been laid again by my predecessors and previous board members who made the chamber as strong and as well respected as it was. But I just felt that it was kind of time to
really open that.
I didn't see a lot of my peers within the network. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So now we've got all these younger folks that come in with all these amazing ideas, and they are the ones that actually understand AI and what it is.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I may never. I don't know.
Yeah.
My computer keeps telling me to do things. I'm going, what the hell is that? I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we need to embrace all that stuff so that I'm also future-proofing the chamber, because it's an important organization.
It is.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't until I got more actively involved through the Chamber Champion program,
Yeah.
and with you, I undervalued the benefits of that group and the network and all the stuff that it brings and brought to us as a company, and mostly around the access to the diversity angle of it.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, you had the groundwork was laid, as in your words, before you came.
Yeah.
Was there any surprising resistance to any of these changes that you were sort of pioneering? I guess you were pioneering it in a way that you were actually doing the work and making those conversations, which might not have been happening before, but open to it, but not yet. I think the last part of it, we still have so much more work to do,
Sure.
but did you get any resistance?
Not directly, not
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody probably would have done that directly to me anyway. It's my idea. So yeah, you suck. That's a really up thing. What do you? So no, I haven't heard anything. I've not had any sense of that whatsoever.
Good.
It's been a really rewarding thing to see that diversity grow, just how it's enriched the organization, how I've seen friendships grow and fold. We have these things that we do at a chamber event where you hold up a sign that says "Met at the Chamber."
Oh, I love that.
And these are people that are connecting and hooking up with each other to do business and social engagements and things like that, which they wouldn't have had if they hadn't been at the chamber. And these are cross-cultural. A huge number of them are cross-cultural. So there's now these sort of small breakout groups of friends that get together on a regular basis outside the chamber to do their thing.
Yeah.
But they met at the chamber. And that was the catalyst that made all that happen. So they've formed new friendships as well as new business relationships.
Amazing.
And I don't know that there are a lot of other opportunities for them to do that. Other chambers, there are 4 other smaller chambers in this region. There's organizations like Viatech are great for that networking thing. South Island Prosperity, as you mentioned, is another one. But we're just kind of a part of that whole mix and have been really, really happy with the engagement that we've seen with that. The difference that it's made within the chamber, but more importantly, the change that it's happened and the difference it's made in the lives of those people who have been engaged with that whole exercise.
Yeah, and I guess it's like anything, you get what you put into it,
Yep.
out of it. which I think I encourage anybody to that's listening in business, and especially if they're starting or even been around for a long time, but having trouble getting over that hump, to engage with the chamber. I think, like you said, the diversity and from every walk of life. And for me, the experience has been incredible. I've made countless relationships that are still continuing to this day since really getting active in the chamber, not just being a passive member. What, how do you, so fast forward to going back maybe even a short time, the US election, the tariff stuff, because you would have been, that would have been a shock. It's a shock to every business and how we navigate and being on this roller coaster, which I think many of us anticipated it being like this if this was the result. But it's hard. You think it's going to be bad, but it's hard to, it's like anything.
It's day to day. Is really what it is, right? I mean, all this stuff that's coming out of Washington and coming out of Trump's mouth, he will fire and then back off, and then fire again and then back off. And there's a whole bunch of theories on that. Creating that sort of uncertainty upsets the balance within the markets, right? So values in the market tank. People then that have capacity will buy up things low and wait until they're high again to sell them. We think that might be part of the motivation behind this. The other, I think, is part of him trying to make a mark historically to create his own legacy. And we don't know other things. I'm not smart enough and well enough connected to know actually what does go on in conversations with the Russians and the Ukrainians and the North Koreans and the Chinese and all that. And I don't know that. All I know is that the disruption has very much impacted businesses, including yours. Everybody's seeing that uncertainty that's out there. But the uncertainty itself, the element that I've seen really profoundly impact everything, aside from the financial part, is the emotional part, is the amount of uncertainty and anxiety. Is at a time when we're already kind of freaked out after the pandemic, because that triggered a lot of people into a really uncomfortable and bad place, right? So we've seen
our nerves are raw.
Still. Right? Productivity is down. Uncertainty is high. We've seen it impact real estate in a whole bunch of different ways. People's investment strategies have been impacted by this. The impact of things like low unemployment here have been a factor with us. We have the lowest unemployment in Canada. Actually, we're second lowest. So something in play right now, for example, is the temporary foreign workers regulation change that is impacting people who have had foreign workers here from other countries who have taken on jobs that Canadians won't do, and they do them very well, and they're having a great time, and you're probably one of them. Now they have to leave.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you go back a couple of podcasts, if you want to review for our listeners, you can get a full episode only on that.
That topic.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So our advocacy now, which we are doing both through the provincial government and directly to the federal government. I don't know if you saw on social media, but I had 10 minutes one-on-one.
Yeah,
with Mark
I saw
Carney.
that. Yeah, exactly.
So he kind of said in the meeting, I'll paraphrase, he said, what do I need to know? I want you here to tell me what I need to know. So we said one of the things is that because our unemployment rate here is so low, we need to be exempt from those rules. And there are other places in the country, places with high unemployment, sure. Get those folks back into the workforce. We don't have extra bodies floating around.
No.
The regular average normal rate of unemployment in this country is 5%.
Yeah.
We're at 3.1.
Yeah, so which is like...
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And we're saying that we need an exemption on that for this region and others who have similar unemployment levels. So that kind of advocacy is something that we're undertaking right now to make that change happen. The other one that's parallel to that is the international student visas.
Yes.
Which was a terribly badly broken system, right? Yeah. There's a community college in Kitchener, Ontario, where I used to live, that had 30,000 international students.
Wow.
The revenue from that has given them a contingency fund of about $600 million. Wow.
Which
so now
they're going to need it now, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I mean,
but look at
they're kind of screwed now.
All the other colleges and universities could have used that kind of a fund as well. But now they're in a position where it's looking pretty grim.
Yeah.
And the full circle on that is that they should have audited the system, not just completely shut it down. And changed the things across the board. But what that means now is that we have diminished capacity to create workforce. So Camosun College, VIU, North Island College, Kwantlen, BCIT will have less resource to create the pipe fitters and the plumbers,
the people
the cooks
we need.
and the chefs, and the people that we need.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a problem for us. And where we're going to get those workers and what you're going to end up having to pay them, I don't know.
Well, and this is the thing, because there's another component to that, you know, when you impact people's lives, so you've got these people and these companies, like if you just talk about the business side of it, I feel it's a little bit shallow, because it's just like, oh, our inputs and our labor is affected and all that stuff, our profits. That's one thing, but you put in, which is important, but you put in the other part, which is the human capacity and the human effect. So a lot of these people, especially on the LMIA program, leaving aside the student thing, because you're right, that is broken, was broken and needed to be fixed. But the knee-jerk reaction of overcorrecting, and when you have somebody, okay, you're in on these rules, here's the points, and here's, you know, go work for these companies, you know, start building relationships, start being integral. Like we probably have 40% of our employees on an LMIA program. Okay. And a lot of them are in management level. And it's not like we do full, you know, through that program, you got to do full market assessment, and, you know, you put anybody Canadian want to come and do this, and they're like crickets. Yeah. And then you get these really, you know, good quality people that are coming in, and they're integral to our business now, like integral. Now, I guess it's probably been the last 2 years, they just midstream, they changed the rules. So they up the points. Oh, you can't do the points. Oh, you can't get your permanent residency now. All these things. And I can't tell you how many times I've had meetings with my staff that are affected by this. They're in tears.
Absolutely.
And they're not only in tears, their family back home is in tears. Yeah. And just from the humanity side of it, it's just wrong. And it's so easy just to grandfather the people that are in the existing program. You guys are in the stream, good. And then do a hard stop if you want, if that's what you think is best. But why affect the businesses and affect the lives? It's beyond me. Like, it's just
who have been participating in good faith.
They've been doing every single thing, and the rules now have changed. Yeah. Like, imagine, you know, and we had a chef on here who's completely devastated, and a lot of these people have no idea if they may just have to go home tomorrow. And when you see what's going on in the States and the effect, like, it's more, you know, everywhere on social media and the news, you can see examples of what happens to people's lives. Yeah. So we as a country, and we think, you know, we are great. It's a wonderful, fantastic country, but we're making these, you know, we're owning ourselves in some way. We're stubbing our own toe. Like, why do this? Yeah. Like, it needs to be fixed, like, ASAP.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, it needs to be fixed. Like
some of them were probably the spouse of an international student.
Yes. Well,
yes. And that's the thing. These two issues not only are problems in our future, like you're saying, we don't know the quality of workers who we're going to get in the next 5 to 10 years now, but the immediate impact to Victoria is based on government workers, students, and tourists. Really, that's our income.
Tech workers, construction.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But if you take out a whole bunch of the rich students who are here on foreign visas,
driving
around, spending money at their local bars and restaurants, that really impacts us immediately when they aren't here. And to compound that, when the government is still insisting people can and should work from home, that impacts us. It's just one more thing on our immediate daily business. It's
a risk. It's a risk. And you go to different markets. I've got a brother that has an oil business or oil service business in Grand Prairie, and they're been short workers for a decade. And, you know, there is that other, you know, the diversity and inclusion, and that environment's not very inclusive by nature, which is a different issue. But I was having a conversation with another brother that's up there that works for my brother, and he was, you know, wow, we got to give jobs to Canadians, and I'm just like, you realize there's no Canadians, right?
We don't have enough of them.
This is a demographic issue, and I said this in our other podcast too. Is like the idea that our problem is that we've allowed too many immigrants, and that's we've got structural things the way they did it that is wrong, that needs to be fixed. But we need
the bodies.
We need the bodies. Like, we need the bodies, and they're here.
And the brains.
And you know, brain drain's a real thing. If we want to be competitive, that's a huge, diversity is what makes us strong.
Yeah, and a remarkable number of immigrants to this country have a post-secondary degree education, right?
Yeah, and they speak multiple languages.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So now you also have somebody there that can talk to other people in different languages.
Yeah, and to go back to what you pointed about the points, rather, when they accumulate enough points, very often once those points are accumulated in the private sector, where do they go? They go to government.
Yeah.
Right? The government goes, "Ooh, you're trained. You got your points. Thank you very much. Come with me."
Exactly.
Right. So the size of, with all due respect to I would never want to work within government or run for office to try and commandeer any of this stuff.
I'm going to quote you on
God
that.
knows I've been asked, but it's such a slippery slope on all that stuff. But government has increased their size. The civil service has grown to provide the services that we felt and they felt was necessary to get us through the pandemic. But the part about working from home is one that we at the Chamber are hammering at all the time, saying specifically to the province, what are you going to do with all that space downtown?
Yeah.
When are you going to bring those people back? It's probably been okay for outlying regions. I think Oak Bay Avenue's done okay.
Yeah.
And Beacon Avenue's done okay, and things are busy in Saanich and Uptown's probably been pretty steady because those folks are living, shopping, eating, drinking closer to home.
Yeah.
It's downtown that's been decimated. So,
Yeah.
I had a meeting a year and a half ago, maybe with senior people in the Premier's office and from the Ministry of Citizen Services. That's who maintains government properties and manages them. And I said, okay, whole whack of empty space downtown. We got to talk about that because, that's people that aren't drinking coffee and buying shoes on their lunch break and stuff.
Burgers.
So let's talk about that. So what's the possibility of converting any of that government-owned space into housing?
Yeah.
Right. And they said 0. It's not, doesn't qualify. The HVAC isn't there. The zoning's not in place. Okay. What about the spaces where you have long-term leases that are not being used at capacity either? They were looking into that. They're still working on it. And I said, have you given any consideration to possibly converting any of that into urban agriculture?
Yeah.
Into urban farming? Yes, we have looked at that. Have you? Well, I think they have. The other suggestion I made to them,
a lot of looking, a lot of thinking.
Thinking about election cycles have a lot to do with that too.
Yeah.
Right? The other point I made was, there's a lot of in this kind of an economy, philanthropy drops. People feel they have less capacity to market themselves and to invest in philanthropy and public organizations, charities, nonprofits. I said, what about the possibility of providing some of that office space that you're paying for to nonprofit organizations so that they will no longer have the challenge of keeping their doors open because a lot of them are closing?
Yeah, it was a great idea.
And they said, that's a good idea. but we have yet to see any of that happen as well.
We'll look into it.
Yes. Well, our people will get in touch with your people.
Yeah. Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah.
But I again have faith that they will be looking into that. We get calls from the media all the time saying, well, the government just did that and they're doing what you didn't want them to do. Are they wrong? So the answer I always say is, well, we trust that they made an informed decision. That's the sort of generic answer.
Yeah.
We trust that they made, I don't know where they get the information, but they have a system in place that works for them. And that's what we've delegated that responsibility to them because we voted for them. So yeah, the nonprofit thing. So within the chamber network, even I'm on regular calls with my counterparts across the province and across the country, and a lot of the smaller ones, like the Uber chambers in the very small places with 200 members, 250 members. A number of them are closing their offices. They just don't have the resource anymore because their membership has eroded to the point that it's the same as we saw here. I don't know what's going to happen, and so they're closing. So they become work from home. So the chamber executive director,
which is kind of the death knell a little bit. I think, like having maybe they can make it work. Like
some of them are looking at mergers.
Yeah.
But in remote areas, that's very difficult. So if you've got two communities that are 50 miles apart, how many kilometers is that?
75.
Good answer. Thank you. But anyway, so for them to continue to do that sort of thing where they gather people together, is one going to drive all the way to the other? Are they going to meet in the middle? It's a bigger, larger regional advocacy for one thing, but it's that in-person thing that's another way it's impacting. So we're seeing that, we talk with government about tax rates. You both see that in your life every single day.
Yeah.
Building rents and building taxes have gone up exponentially over the last number of years. So we've seen restaurants close because the landlord passes that cost on to the tenant.
Yeah.
And they can no longer maintain margins, so they close.
Yeah.
I brought a large group. Were you in that group, the people we went to City Hall with?
No, I was out of town.
You were away, yeah. So we took a bunch of business owners in who kept saying to me, what are you going to do about the fact that our property taxes are going up so much? And that's raising my rent. I said, I don't think very much because we can go to the city and they're going to, I'll tell you right now, the city will say it's up to BC assessment to make that happen. BC assessment is doing something called the highest and best use tax. So that if you're operating in a 2 or 3 story building, but they feel it should be an 8 or 9 story building, you're being taxed on the air above it. That's the deal on that, which is kind of a roundabout way of saying you need to step aside so that we can build some condos with ground floor retail there.
How can you tax something that's not there?
It's happening.
Highest and best use.
Or who was it? Just watch me.
Yeah.
Wow.
See who's marching. That's made a huge impact in a lot of properties in Victoria as
Absolutely,
well.
yeah. So at the same time, so that's BC assessment is imposing that on the municipalities.
Which is provincial.
That's right, because the municipalities operate at the pleasure of the province under a charter from the province. They could go at any time and say, click, you're gone, you're going to come, you're a part of us now. So even BC assessment, if they drop that, the city would have to maintain the mill rate on those properties because otherwise they wouldn't have the budget to do what we expect them to do, to pick up the garbage, to plow the streets, to keep the pools open.
Well, and the city isn't like, it's not like they don't profit. They balance their budget every year, right?
Yep.
So,
all of them.
So the taxes they're collecting get spent. So you can argue whether it's efficient or what their projects are, but majority of the money goes to, in Victoria anyways, to policing, garbage, fire, like just the standard services, parks municipality stuff like sewers,
ripping the streets up.
Every day blocking traffic, driving people crazy.
Are municipalities corporations? Some, right? Are they?
That's a good question.
And if they are corporations, don't they have a fiduciary responsibility to make a profit on behalf of
because they're not, it's specifically not profit. Like,
no,
they can't make a profit.
It's our money.
Yeah.
It's our tax money. So they can't do
their profit would be a surplus, which would then go into a contingency fund.
Okay.
Right? It's kind of like a strata. If there's emergencies or future, because they also pluck some of that tax dollars for infrastructure. So for future stuff they need. So everything they measure the lifespan of. So if there's a new sewer system they put in, it's a 50-year lifespan. So they're going to start putting away $5,
So in 50 more years, I'm going to have to avoid Blanchard again.
Well, it seems like it's every day. Yeah. It's like, man, how long have they been going?
Shelburne's been a beauty. Oh my gosh.
I thought it was over. And all of a sudden now it's just like the other half is being done.
There's more. Yeah. So the next disruption we're hearing is going to be Oak Bay. Because Oak Bay's infrastructure is quite old, and they're going to have to start replacing that. And they've been a little bit resistant. The residents, I think, have said, "Nah,
screw those guys."
You know what? I bet that happens so fast we won't even notice it. They're going to just tear it up.
They're going to just lift the entire city above it. They're going to do it below.
Yeah, they're going to vacuum everything out and replace it.
It'll be profound, though. It'll be really quite something.
Wow.
Okay. When it's done, or when they start?
It's underway.
Oh, it's underway. Profound in the.
So I was told by a mayor at one time that, in areas that have aging infrastructure, if you have a water main break, for example, in the middle of a block of some kind, so everybody comes there and they block the street off and they dig it up and they take all the stuff up and they replace it, put it back in and fill the hole up and pave it again. All of that costs more than doing the entire block.
Wow.
So that's the infrastructure things that are coming down the road, and it has to start to happen, because if not, you're going to have all these little pop-up expenses. They're going to impact bottom line for everybody.
Yeah, and like you said, it's way more expensive to do it. As hard as it is to go through it, and it seems like it's all happening, but it all ages around the same time, I guess. I mean, we're reaching end of life in a lot of
I mean, you take a look at areas that have had major developments happen all at once. For example, Langford had a big boom 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Within their planning now, they have to realize that much of that infrastructure will expire at the same time.
Yeah.
Right, so they've kind of put a hold on. The last big box store was built in Langford, I want to say 18 years ago. Everybody thinks that's what's going on out there, but they did that boom.
Yeah,
and that was that.
Well, so that was to get their tax base, and then they
attract residents and have people shop commerce, all that stuff. So Langford now, for example, is trying to attract a little bit more niche retail, like you guys that went out there for that reason. Yeah. So they're not searching for chain and big box stores as much anymore as they are smaller niche operations, some of which I think have made the choice to go there because downtown wasn't working for them anymore.
Right.
Yeah, the downtown it's a battle. I mean, I love supporting downtown, and I don't see it as bad as many do. Like, parking is easy. It's like, if you actively go there regularly, you realize it's it's like anything, the fear mongering of how bad it is.
I'm there every day.
Safety, and we even have my partners live, and we had an office right on like a block away from the epicenter of Pandora.
Yeah.
And it's bad. They live there. My partners live there,
Yeah.
Joe and Peter. And there's like stories and this, but
Oh, yeah.
they're safe. They feel safe. It's annoying in some cases, but it's not. It's as bad as it looks in the eyes. It's
Yeah.
not as bad as
What's
people
happening
say.
more now too in the reporting through media of incidences that happen, whether it's violence or
Yeah.
vandalism or whatever it might be. The reporting is now including the fact that the individual was experiencing a drug overdose at the time or experiencing a mental health episode.
Yeah.
Just to reinforce to people that it's not just random people that want to be jerks. It's people that are having a problem. These poor
They need
souls are dealing
need
with
care.
problems.
Yeah,
They
they
need
need
care.
help.
They need care
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
So that can't happen fast enough. That's going to be vastly expensive, but I think the longer it waits, the more it's going to cost.
Is it more expensive than carrying up the roads and putting in new sewer drains?
Well, those are different bags of money.
Yeah, I guess it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think about do you think Mark Carney, like, forget about the political, who you like as a politician or what your philosophies are. Do you think he, like, early state, like, he seems like a guy who says something, does something. He's more about the action versus the words from our previous prime minister.
Not here to comment on that.
No, neither am I.
Apolitical.
Yeah, apolitical.
I'll comment all you want, but
Yeah.
we were on a limited schedule.
Yeah, limited schedule. Are you encouraged? Were you encouraged by your conversation with him?
I believe he's the right guy at the right time.
Yeah, that's
I've
nice.
had conversations with him in the past, like 10 or 12 years ago when he was the governor of the Bank of Canada.
Yeah.
Not in this role, in a previous role. But I think it became abundantly clear to the voters in this country, which we saw, that he is the right guy at the right time.
Yeah.
He's not alarmist. He's not a name caller. He doesn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
We are in an economic crisis.
Yeah.
He is an economist. He ran the Bank
Well,
of
once
Canada.
in a generation economist too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not-
Well, Stephen Harper was also an economist.
Yes.
But not as actively involved in things. I mean, he as prime minister and economist called on Mark Carney to come in and take care of the economy, right?
Yeah.
So he called another economist to do that.
Yeah.
Carney, I think, is going to have the ability to be more hands-on and make strategic decisions about that. He has appointed a minister of AI.
Yeah.
For example, that person will be distinctly and solely responsible for that, because that's going to be very disruptive. I joked earlier that I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And that's going to impact
And that was
me.
Evan Solomon,
Evan Solomon, former broadcaster.
former broadcaster, because you're a former
We're
broadcaster as
everywhere.
well. You're
Yeah,
everywhere.
That's right, yeah. And we've got some local representation here. The woman who was elected for Esquimalt Saanich Suk, Stephanie McLean, has been named as the special envoy, what's the terms? Parliamentary Secretary for Seniors.
Oh,
We have some seniors around here.
yes,
We
yeah.
have one in the room, actually.
Yeah. What?
And another woman that's been appointed from BC is the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Associate Minister of Defense. Her name is Jill McKnight. She was elected in Delta. Her job before that was that she was the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce in Delta.
Oh, interesting.
So again, that's a purely business voice that's at the table,
Yeah.
which can be sometimes rare to find within certain administrations, because business people don't often run for the parties that end up in government.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's been a good change. But anyway, to answer your question, yes, I believe he's the right guy at the right time. At the time of this recording, we're still in a bit of a honeymoon.
Yeah.
That will start to change. It always does.
Yeah.
My question, I guess, too, is how long will the mandate last?
Yeah.
I can't see the NDP bringing them down.
No.
Because they're a small caucus, and they can never see the NDP aligning with the Conservatives to bring them down.
No.
I can't see that happening. I also don't think that there will be NDPers crossing the floor to join the Liberals in any large numbers.
Yeah.
One possibility, though, is that there could be some more middle-of-the-road Conservatives that might be convinced to
Yes,
go
that's
to the
where I
Liberal
was
side.
going. Yeah.
Because I think some of them, lack of a better term, they didn't run to be in opposition again.
Yeah.
They ran to be in government. So if there's somebody who could pinch their nose and vote with the Liberals, then they may cross. They'd have to put them in cabinet probably.
Yeah.
But that's another possibility. But that's kind of a ways down the road.
But I think also, I guess once they start, passing some laws and getting some stuff, and but the more controversial ones will be where the rubber meets the road on where people are going to vote or not vote, or have confidence or non-confidence. I think Carney is probably more like, if you look at the polarization, I think the Liberals have gone a lot left and the Conservatives have gone a lot right. And the middle ground is there where I think Carney is, which I think a lot of Conservatives would meet there.
Yeah.
And I think even, some NDP, and you've got Bloc as well,
Yeah.
which, is probably more of a, centrist, but obviously
Center left.
Yeah, it's center left.
Yeah.
So I think there is an opportunity to get in the middle where we've talked forever. Middle is where everybody really is,
Yeah.
and there's little bits of this and a little bit of that. And I like the language around it. It's like, hey, I'm not going to, slag the Conservatives, even though he's made some jokes, but I mean, tongue in cheek, whatever. But whoever's got good ideas, come to the table. And I'm not going to, just because you're a Conservative, I'm not going to go, hey, I don't want to listen to you because you're Conservative.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's going to welcome everybody back and get back to the conversation of what actually makes us better, especially in this existential threat, with being next to what is in my mind a fascist government now, will continue to be more fascist as time goes by. And at some point, when somebody stands up down there, maybe it'll shake it. But we're going down a path that 5 years from now, I guess 3 years from now, it's not going to be any better in my vision.
No.
So let's figure out let's all get together and be the smartest people at the table.
Yeah. Government by ego, south of the border.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, and people get caught up. It's just it's the day and age we're in, and we've been here before. And if you look at history, I'm a huge history, reflector. This has all been done before. We know what happened, and it depends on how bad it's going to get.
Yeah. And
hopefully it doesn't get anywhere near as bad as the last time, but we know what's going to happen. So how can we best position ourselves to, just like in 2008, we're able to, it was bad, but it was nowhere near as bad as other jurisdictions.
Yeah, there's an old joke about that. History repeats itself because nobody was listening the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's natural.
It's true.
Like I keep going back to the Fourth Turning, but it's his book that basically talks about the cycle, and it's American centric, and it just generational. It just keeps repeating itself.
Yeah.
So you can look back on 80 years ago, and we're in the exact same time. And the same words are being used, and it's like, well, how is that possible when you can see how it ended up? But people forget, and they think it'll be different this time.
Well, so many of the people that were alive back then aren't here anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. My parents lived through that period of time. They lived through the Depression.
Yeah.
They saw what happened in the Second World War. Both of my parents were born during the First World War, so they had the impacts of that on their generation. The soldiers that came back, severely damaged.
Yeah.
Like oh my God, there's a little town where I grew up again. There was my parents went to a church, and there was this little guy, his name was Davy. And Davy would come to church every Sunday morning wearing a suit that he had probably had since the 30s or 40s. He worked in one of the mills in town, a leather mill, and Davy never spoke. He came back from the First War and had never said a word to anybody. Very nice old man, very watery eyes all the time. The only time we ever heard him speak, he would sit right in the front where nobody ever sat in church, right in front of the pulpit, and go to sleep right away. So one day he was up there doing his usual thing, and he was all slumped over like that. And then he suddenly went, Jesus Christ.
The only words.
That's the only word we had ever heard him
He's
say.
a prophet.
That's right. But, there were guys like them that walked among me as a kid, and my parents got to know him. My parents' family friends went to war. My father didn't because he was medically unfit to go. He would have gone, but he didn't. But, he had friends that died. He had friends that I grew up with they had PTSD. There's no question about it. There were some that something would trigger them and they would just freak out, or they would cry, or something would happen. That was the impact that we had growing up. The people who witnessed that war that happened in Germany, or with Germany, much of which we didn't know about until after the war, because all that horrific stuff was not reported.
Sure.
But that was a part of our upbringing to know that stuff. So we know what's possible. But those who lived through it are not here anymore. Yeah. So I think that might be part of it.
Well, there isn't a large priority in keeping people in that headspace about it, like reminding them, like in Germany. Oh, sorry. I just dumped coffee. Okay. At least I didn't dump it through my beard like Sam did last week.
Yes,
did you really?
I did. Me being the coffee professional. I'm having to leave pretty soon, but Bruce, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a question about the hospitality industry.
Yes, please do.
The
Are we recording still? Or?
Yes, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, this is all
This
just
is-
part of the fun.
Part of the skit.
Yes, okay, go for it.
I can't let it go. Wait,
Sugar?
Yeah, a little bit of cream. So the being part of the Bread and Butter Collective, our mission is to help him to stand up for hospitality businesses.
Yeah.
What is the Chamber of Commerce doing? Are there initiatives that you've presented in the last few years for and about the hospitality industry that we can be looking towards for some answers or guidance or for some help?
We advocated very strongly for the patio program, specifically in the city of Victoria. When that came along, we said, yes, that has to happen as soon as possible. We created an initiative ourselves called Picnics and Patios, where when the patios were reopening, we said to people, you need to go out. You need to get out there and do this. So I and others went out and went to patios and randomly picked people and paid their bill.
I remember that. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And we would take their picture and put it up on social media saying, you see, these folks went out and we paid their bill. So that's why you need to go out and do that. So we, again, as I say, work with the BCRFA on a very regular basis. There's countless issues that come up through that organization where that's where we support them. That's their core business and that's what they do.
Right.
So we work as much as possible with those organizations to find out what their priorities are, and then we advocate on behalf of them to levels of government that need to hear that.
Okay. Is there anything in the pipelines right now that the chamber is being active with that would influence the hospitality industry here in Victoria?
We, again, are trying to get people back into the offices downtown, in particular for those areas. We want to make sure that we have a very strong and robust chain of employees rather to come through, which comes back to the foreign worker program and that kind of stuff, to make sure that employees are in place for that. We want to find and create opportunities for affordable housing to happen. So one of the sort of corollary things to that, we've done advocacy to increase the amount of military housing being built in Canada. The reason being, kind of try to imagine all the people that are driving to and from the base every day and to the shipyard right next door because they don't live on the base.
Right.
They're taking up housing elsewhere in the marketplace that could be worker housing, that could possibly be a bit more affordable if we can house them on the base. That also helps the military with recruitment and retention. The other one, somewhat related to that, is on-campus housing. Because all of the students that are living in student housing, that could very well be worker housing, people that could be working for you or working for you. So they create a sense of community on campus. It's a lower carbon footprint, quite honestly. But freeing up and making housing more available and more affordable helps your sector and helps other sectors too. So those are a couple of things that we're doing. We did a lot to sort of help businesses understand what the regs and the opportunities were for relief during the pandemic when the different CERB and all that stuff that came along. Yeah, so we have people much smarter than me that can go through that stuff and read it and go, oh, here's what that means. And then we send that messaging out, right? So our policy guy named Jim Zeben is very good at that. So he gets those points in place and then we articulate it to your employees, to you, to other people, so you can understand what you can access, how long you're going to get that money, how long it's going to last. We were strongly advocating for the payback element of that stuff, right? And that they didn't really listen to us on that.
It was hard to pay that back.
Absolutely.
You still don't have any money.
Yeah, and it forced a lot of people out, which proved that actually the relief when it came up front was a reprieve for people that were going to go under anyway. And that was revenue they would not have had. So that was unfortunate, but we were a part of carrying that forward to get some of our money back into this region to invest into opportunities and into companies that needed that stuff. The other thing that we do, though, is that we are responsive to whatever might be needed. Again, I delegate that lead largely to Ian Tostenson at the BCRFA and the DVBA to a degree and other food-based and restaurant organizations. We want to use our voice to amplify yours. There's a lot of Destination Greater Victoria is involved in that because of all of the hospitality and tourism partners that are a part of the sector. So organizations like the DVBA, Destination Greater Victoria, the Harbour Authority kind of have a stake in that. All of those organizations at some point in some way get money from the government or a government. We don't. Chamber gets
it's all
zero money from the government. So we meet with that group all the time. South Island Prosperity is another one. We talk about the issues that matter to them and the advocacy that they need with the government. So the phrasing that we use in the group is that we all collectively make the snowball the chamber throws it.
And
Yeah.
Right. So we recently, for example, stepped up about the 5th ferry for BC Ferries. Without that 5th ferry, we feel that we're not going to be getting the tourism flow that we need and the supply chain flow that we need. So I, in consultation with ferries and with these other organizations, wrote a letter to the Premier that the media picked up on and got great exposure on that, with them all lining up saying, yes, we agree that we need that 5th ferry. So we do advocacy on things like that.
Okay.
Because what the people don't understand in general is that, the government has to buy another ferry for BC Ferries. No, actually they don't, because BC Ferries raises that money on their own.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So they capitalize themselves. They do bonds. They do whatever it takes. So.
Well, and as a part,
Thanks for answering that for me.
And anything you need, I'm here for you.
I appreciate that, Bruce. I'm sorry.
You take
do
off.
Have to go.
I'll wrap up with Bruce.
So
Solo.
you be nice.
You be real kind.
Okay, I will. And Bruce, it was a real pleasure. Thanks for being here. And I'm sorry I have to leave.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Good luck. We'll talk later, Sam. Cheers.
Drive carefully. Don't back into my car out there either when you're leaving. Okay.
I will ever so gently back into your car.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Yes.
the advocacy part obviously is important. I guess that's one of the things, like the understanding of what the organization does, which I think you've articulated very well. Like, it's, in fact, there's some direct things that you've done for the hospitality industry. There's some indirect impacts. So your advocacy for 5th Ferry wouldn't seem like as an impact, but it is. It's a total impact to the area. You're going to be going through some changes.
Yes.
Yes. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So we talked about this before we started recording too, but I will be gone from the chamber sooner than later. My 5-year contract ends on June 15th, and I had informed my board back in December that I wouldn't renew that contract. I feel it's time for some new energy, some new direction, somebody to come on board. That person has been selected, and despite what we said before we started recording, I'm not going to reveal the name right now.
Perfect.
By the time this airs, people will know who it is, but just in case.
100%.
So, but this is a person who was an amazingly good fit. Within the chamber culture itself, this person has been a part of it for a long time and fully understands it, which means there won't be as much of a learning curve if it had been someone from outside. It's somebody with deep roots in this community, which I feel is really important. It has to be somebody who is intensely local and understand what goes on here, a strong background in business, and will have the ability to create advocacy and call on government for results. And we'll also do that thing to connect people with each other and remind everybody what we mean to each other. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
What's next for you?
I don't know. What do you got?
I got some burger flipping jobs. I've got some front of house jobs.
Yeah. I don't have anything yet that's been set up. I think a lot of people have been sort of waiting until the shoe actually drops and that I'm gone. I've had some overtures, and I'll probably have some selection. It won't be a full-time thing. I will, what will I be? I will consult. I will do contract work, whatever it might be. My dear, sweet, beautiful Amanda, my wife, and I own a company called Spark Strategic Group, which in its core is a marketing and communications company.
Oh, excellent.
I'm a communications guy.
Yeah.
I've been able to communicate pretty well what the chamber needs and does.
Yeah.
I'm pretty adept at connecting people because I know a lot of people.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to have the ability to help people connect with who they need to connect with to help grow their business. So business development is what I'd done in a previous life too. So I think I'll do, it's nerdy stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do.
Would you ever get back into broadcasting
No.
or anything like that? Yeah.
No.
That
Also,
chapter.
no.
Yeah. It's
It's not- well, I mean, I do the podcast here. I do
Yeah,
the
of
chamber
course.
chapter,
Yeah.
But that'll be ending when I depart as well.
Yeah.
No, been there, done that. It's been exhilarating to leave that industry and do other things. It was fantastic when I did it for the multi-year contract and career that I had. But no, it's not for me. That's a place for younger people with.
I guess that helps the communication side of it, though, right? So
yeah, like we alluded to this earlier. When all of the government grant programs, regulations, everything was coming down, to articulate that into fairly colloquial language, I had the ability to do. A lot of organizations and a lot of causes can go down a rabbit hole in a big hurry.
Yeah.
Get tied up in acronyms and names and terms. And all that. That's not what I do. We always had this thing in broadcasting when we said you talk to people like you're speaking to a grade 6 class. That's how you kind of articulate what you're doing. When you're telling a news story, if you listen to the language or the way it's presented, it's pretty basic because it has to be. You can expand that in your own mind.
Yeah.
But you need to lay the basic facts out so that most can easily understand it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's again an inclusion thing where you really get other people on board quicker.
Yep.
And even if they agree or disagree, they understand what you're saying, which I think is cutting to the chase. When you start these fancy words and long sentences, it's just really a way to confuse people, and you don't really have that action point.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes it's possible. I mean, there are words that have entered into our lexicon that that are fairly existential.
yes,
We talked about that as well.
Yeah, it's so easy to
Suddenly
say.
pivot became a big word.
Yeah.
And but yeah, there are complicated words that have to be sometimes a part of that lexicon, and it just eventually integrates itself in. But in the basis of telling a story, it's the who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we concentrate on. But anyway, been there, done that, and I don't need to go back to that.
Don't
world
need to
again.
go back.
No.
Well, it's interesting because I may have a conversation with you about the communications piece.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of like I look at our business like Big Wheel in itself, and we have had ideas of certain growth and this kind of stuff, and we've been to markets. I think of our market in Courtenay.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
I've been to Nanaimo.
And Nanaimo, and it's just like a different beast. And I think when you come here, so we're an island-based company. We've been here. I've lived on the island for 35 years. And so I feel like I am from Victoria. It's my home.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in Victoria, we're very well connected. The community knows what we're about. But when you go to, these northern Vancouver Island communities, it's not quite as easy as a step, which is, interesting. I view it as a challenge, but sometimes it's, in the battle of, you just wish it was a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's a different culture. It's a different economy. Up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, totally different. And I noticed that even in Victoria, like the Langford to Victoria to Cook Street to, Gateway near Uptown, like there's different, very unique, different, customer bases and needs and requirements, which I think is underappreciated. So as a business person, understanding who your customer is, thinking that, oh, we're in BC. No. Thinking we're in Victoria. No. Think, okay, well, that market, this market, and even more so up there, which I think for me, because I used to work in Courtenay. I had a friend that lived there, and unfortunately he passed in a car accident. And I went to, his girlfriend was pregnant at the time. And so I went up there just to kind of support her and support his family during this tragic event.
Yeah.
So I feel connected to Courtenay, and I feel one of our partners in a business is from Courtenay. She grew up in Courtenay, was raised in Courtenay. So we have a lot of ties there. And again, it's like, how do we communicate that story of that connection? Because it's more to me than Nanaimo. I didn't have those connections in Nanaimo. I didn't know how to make those interactions and build that community. And I feel like we do in Courtenay, but I also feel like we're kind of heading down the same sort of path as we did in Nanaimo in that lack of connection or understanding, or, there's somebody in the restaurant in Courtenay talking about, is this a US franchise or is this and I'm just like, wow. Like thinking, like I always think as the head, I'm like, oh, people know who we are and stuff, but
you've got that luster of a professional organization that people assume is from somewhere else.
Yeah,
right?
the polish of it.
Nanaimo, Courtenay, Comox, they both have one similarity, that there's the north and the south.
Yeah.
In Nanaimo, there's the south end, there's the north end.
Yeah.
Courtenay and Comox are distinctly, they're separated by a river. It's not a big deal. There's bridges, that's fine.
Yeah.
But they are separate and distinct cultures. And there's Cumberland over in the other corner,
that's right.
So there's that going on too. But it's an interesting place in that, for example, they have fishing fleets, they have fish farms, they have mill operations.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that. We have some fishing.
And haven't had it for years.
No, but Finest at Sea goes out and fishes.
That's
a few
right.
along on Fisherman's Wharf.
Yeah.
You go to the harbor in Courtenay and Comox and in Campbell River.
They're out there all
all over the place. Yeah. And there's Port Alberni, same thing. Port Alberni's an economy built on mills, which is that culture that they got one that's still partially operating. Campbell River had a mill and a mine. I don't believe either is operating anymore. I stand to be corrected, of course.
Yeah.
But those are cultures that just are completely different.
Yeah.
Right? I would think on a per capita basis, more people fish up there than they do here. They go out on the water and they have either you have a boat or even better, you have a friend with a boat. So you go out with them and you fish and you're going out to catch tai and you're going to do all that stuff in the secret spot that you know of. So they're a distinct culture compared to us. We get very often here referred to as the coffee and man bun culture in Victoria. but you don't see a
I
lot
just
of that
took
up
my
there.
man bun down,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
refused.
So they are distinctly different places, but yes, there are ways to market. And the fact
Yeah.
that you are a local company is the strongest suit you can play.
Yeah, I would think. And again, so we'll talk. Yeah.
Especially now with the flags.
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing too, is trying not to, and it's always, for me, it's always about the soapbox. Like, I don't like hopping on a soapbox and saying this, look at me. I'd rather just have action that then, it's the best way to make permanent change or permanent effect on your customers. Just like, do you integrate with your beliefs, and they believe what you say when you say it, but you don't have to stand up and pound your chest.
Yeah.
So I think getting into a market like that, drawing a little bit more attention to what we do and what we've done and who we are, and building that is probably the angle for us.
Another similarity we have with Comox is that we're both military communities.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
CFB at Esquimalt, and CFB at Esquimalt and CFB Comox, and then the 443 Squadron rather is based in Comox, but also has a branch down here at YYJ.
Yeah. So there's some similarities there too.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll chat. Bruce, thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate your friendship, and more than you know.
Well,
it's been,
thank you.
Yeah.
We've known each other a long time.
Yeah. And it's been good. It's been nice to have a friend in a time of need.
And you've been a friend too. Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Crying again. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you.
Thank
and
you.
good luck with all your future endeavors. And obviously, we'll stay in touch. And
Will do.
I look forward to seeing where you come. And I look forward to the announcement of the new chamber CEO, which I think is will be wonderful. So
great.
Good.
Thanks,
Bruce. Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-Inspired Catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.